Good morning, Pitchline Chronicles. I am Uncle Tots. I am here with Rob, and it was one hell of a weekend. Not only did we get a sweep of the Reds, which wasn't like it was a world beater, but tight series, well played, but we also were gifted the fact that we do not have Hicks on this roster anymore, as the news came out that he got DFA'd, and the celebration amongst the fans was just exactly what we all were calling for. So, Rob, when you first got the news, how happy were you?
Well, first, what's up to everybody in the chat? Because chat has been jumping before we even went live. So, Big shout out to everybody. I see them in there. Fortrain, there's Mazda, Sunil's in there, TC's in there, Medina. They're all over the place. Jonathan's in the chat. So, what's up to everybody? They're all happy, and as we should be. We've been asking for this for a long time. When I heard the news, actually, it was Brad who broke it to me because I didn't know it. But he replied to me on Twitter, and he said, Hicks is gone, has hell frozen over. And I said, he's what? So I had to go check, and I see it. And so I want to thank Brad. I don't know if he's in the chat right now or if he's going to see this later. So thank you, Brad, for breaking that to me. But all jokes aside, it was a long time coming. And it was a divorce that needed to happen. And I'm glad they finally did it. You know, he had his best 2-week span of the season, but he's unreliable. Not a good player. He doesn't hit. He doesn't field well. He clearly needed a change of scenery. He's going to get that. And hopefully, you know, some other team's problem at some point. But, yeah, it was great news. It was excellent news because the team's been playing well, and it tells me that the organization's like, we can't keep holding on to these bad players just because we're paying them a certain amount of money. We got to wake up and we got to get this dead weight off the roster. It should have happened a lot sooner. We know they tried to trade him this offseason. Nobody wanted him. They tried to get something out of him. They gave it 2 months essentially, and just like, it's not working. He's not getting any better. And yeah, good riddance. You know, I can't celebrate injury-filled seasons in one really good year and be like, that was worth it. It's just the last few years have been an absolute downward spiral for him between injuries and blaming the manager, blaming the organization, claiming he needs to get playing time, giving up on plays, whether it be in the regular season or spring training. He's just, it needed to happen, and I'm so glad it's finally been done.
Oh, and this is the second time that we've seen Cashman kind of just say, you know what, enough is enough. You've declined to the point where there's no saving you. We saw them do it with Sanchez, where they cut the ties with him, and we always said, you know, Cashman has his children that he just doesn't want leaving the house because he doesn't, you know, he wants to protect them and make sure that he takes care of them, right? So we saw Sanchez get traded last year. Now this year we're seeing it. We saw it this weekend with Hicks, and it's about time that Cashman grew up and kicked the kids out of the house and let them fend for themselves. Saying, look, I'm not going to protect you anymore. You know, I'm not going to put my reputation on the line because you're a nice kid, you know, or, you know, because it's nothing against their personalities. I'm sure Hicks was, you know, a very fun, you know, might have been a fun person to be around. He never really seemed to lose his temper and just really go off on anybody. It was the way that he just, it all goes back to Derek Jeter Day. I think that was where we could handle players going through slumps or having a bad year, you know, and trying to, you know, get back into the graces of the fans. But when you give up on a play like that, there's no coming back from that. There was nothing that he was going to be able to do. I don't even think a game-winning grand slam in the World Series was going to save Hicks's reputation amongst the fans because of the lack of effort that he's been putting out. So when you get to that point, you have to cut ties. You know, and it's not like, you know, they brought in Greg Allen. And let's not make Greg Allen to be a world beater. But he's going to be like how we were always comparing IKF is going to be a better Tyler Wade. Greg Allen is just a better Hicks. You know, you're not going to get a superstar, but you're going to get the effort, and he's going to put the work in. And that's something that we have not seen from Hicks this year. He does not put the work in at all.
Well, If he had hit a grand slam in the World Series, he would have been a hero. Let's be honest. Let's be honest here. But yeah, that was just the start of it. You know, they were chanting Joey Gallo after that play. I mean, you know how bad you have to be for them to chant Joey Gallo at you, because Joey Gallo was the most hated player on the team until he got traded. So yeah, it's just it was a bad marriage, and for a while, let's be honest, it did look like a steal of a trade. He did have a good 2017, but then he was hurt. He had a great 2018. He even got an MVP vote, which is surprising, but he had a really good season that year, and he got a $10 million a year deal for 7 years. You're like, for a guy that's, if he's healthy, giving you that production, that's a steal. Had a really rough injury in 2019. I'll admit that it's very tough to come back from, but since then, he's just been hurt, or when he's on the field, he's not playing well. Last year was his healthiest season since 2018, and he wasn't good. So I know there's a lot of people on Twitter that are like, "Hey, thank you for the great years you gave us at the start of this." But was it really that great? Because if you're going to be like, well, from 2017 through 2020, he was one of the top center fielders in baseball. He didn't play every year. He played less than 100 games but 1 year. And that was 2018. So like he played in like 60 some odd games, I think, or 90 something games in 2017, 2019, the same thing. And 2020, if it wasn't for the COVID season, he would have been hurt to start that year as well. We can't, if you're going to give player credit for being injured, I don't want to hear you complaining when Stanton goes on the IL or if Judge goes on the IL or so-and-so, whatever. But yeah, he gave us production early on, but the last few years, it was clear as day he needed to go. And I'm glad they finally did it. He wasn't helping this team win. They're going to eat the money and just say goodbye. That's the best thing you can do when you're a team. When you have to move on from a player, you have to do it. They could do it for A-Rod. They did it for Ellsbury. They had to do it for Aaron Hicks sooner than later. And hey, better late than never.
Yeah, and when you look at the contract that was given to him, right? The 10 years, the 7 years of $10 million. Off of that 1 year, you're like, okay, if you're going to get a slightly above average center fielder, switch hitter, it wasn't the money per year that really had us scratching our heads. That was actually a decent, that's not a lot of money for a center fielder. I think it was the years that had a lot of us scratching our heads going, why are you committing so long off of one season? It's not like, when Judge, after his rookie year, if they would have given him a monster contract, I think that's in a different category. Just because, of what Judge was able to do. And he came up through the system. So fans would accept that a lot more. And, even with the injury issues with Judge, he's never – it all comes down to players that have embarrassed the organization. When you embarrass the franchise, that's another strike from the fan base where it's like, okay, we don't want you here anymore. You've done enough damage. You're making us a laughing stock that we keep playing you. That's where I think it came to a boiling point. Boone was almost hesitant to use them a lot. You started to see that they weren't, usually when you get these guys that Cashman really takes under his wing, Boone, to play nice, will constantly put them in the lineups. And we weren't seeing that with Hicks. So I think Boone was, might have been that voice in his ear going, you got to give me something better to work with.
He was outplayed by everybody.
IKF outplayed him.
And IKF's been terrible this year. He hit a home run in Cincinnati. His bat's been a lot better lately, but he's been really bad as well this year. But minor players that were signed to minor league contracts outplayed him. Jake Bauers, who hasn't hit at all lately, still has outplayed Aaron Hicks. Willie Calhoun, who's not known for being a good offensive player, outplayed Aaron Hicks. Franchi Cordero, who was sent to AAA, outplayed Aaron Hicks. Oswaldo Cabrera, who's not hitting, outplayed Aaron Hicks. IKF, that's 5 different players that have outplayed this guy, and they're making far less than he is. So if Hicks was just an average player, that's worth $10 million in today's game. But, all we needed him to be was just that high on base, have some power, play a good left field. It doesn't even have to be great. Just be an average MLB left fielder, and that's it. That's worth. I can survive that. I can live with that for $10 million a year. That's a steal. If you're just a guy that can hit me 20 home runs, get on base a bunch of times, and play good defense, that's worth $10 million. And no one's going to say anything because he's a switch hitter. You're like, there's a guy that can lengthen out the lineup, put him in the 7th spot, whatever, and you live with it. That's fine. But he was way worse than that. He got on base, but that's just about it. He drew a walk every so often. Other than that, he wasn't hitting home runs anymore. His power was completely gone. His defense was completely gone. His speed wasn't really anything to write home about as of late. It was good at first, and then he got slower. And injuries have derailed this guy's career, that's for sure. But you add everything else on top of that, he just wasn't a good player anymore, and it was time to move on.
No, and it wasn't so much what the injuries only caused him to decline. I think if we would have seen, him really trying to put the work in and reinvent himself, I think we would have had a little longer of a leash. Because we still don't, we're still waiting for some of these minor leaguers to develop a little bit with Jones and Dominguez, who are going to be up here sooner than later. And one of the things that you're always worrying about with some of these prospects are the contracts that are holding them back, because you're stuck with these veteran players who are not able to produce at a high capacity, but you don't want to just throw that money away. I think this is a huge narrative shift from the Yankees saying, look, money be damned. We want to put the best on the field whenever we get the opportunity to. I think this could be a really positive thing for the Yankees going forward this season.
Yeah, I mean, you think they're doing it? They have to be doing the same thing with Josh Donaldson, right? He just happens to cut his hand as he was about to ramp up baseball activities. Remember when Ellsbury was getting like these phantom injuries, and just because they just didn't want to play him, and they eventually had that big, there was that whatever with the insurance and paying him whatever he was owed, but the last few years of his deal, they paid him not to play. So I wonder if they're doing the same thing with Donaldson until they just have that mutual option to cut him after the season. We're just going to pay, they have to pay him one way or the other, right? They're not going to trade him. No one's taking him.
Yeah.
No one was taking Aaron Hicks. So the Yankees are like, either we pay him and he hurts the team every time he's on the field, or we pay him to not play. I feel like they're doing the same thing for Josh Donaldson, because clearly they are a better team without him. DJ LeMahieu has been fantastic at third base the last 2 years. He was excellent again yesterday. We see Volpe, he's going through those growing pains, but it's Donaldson's not holding up a spot for anybody right now, except for Peraza maybe, because they still won't call him up. But everybody's playing where they need to be playing. DJ's at third, Torres at second, Volpe's at short. You don't have to worry about, let's get Josh Donaldson in there. So I feel like they're doing the same thing with him. But yeah, it's telling me that they're not going to allow, just because of your contract, they're not going to allow you to hold a spot hostage. Yeah. Now, I do think we'll see Donaldson at some point, because injuries will occur, and he might just come back up at a random part of the season. But it is a little fishy right now that his hamstring or whatever it was, he was 5 games into the season. He got hurt again during his rehab stint, and we haven't heard from him since. And then he just happens to cut his hand as he's about to get back into baseball activities. I don't know. Something's a little fishy there.
Yeah, it's, I hope that they're not, there's nothing worse than, using your kids as an excuse. So I hope that, I hope that is, not that I hope that he got hurt, legitimately, but I do hope he got hurt legitimately with what he said. Because I think using your kid, I kind of think is a little cowardice. I can't see the Yankees just saying, "Oh, this would make a good story," because then if he comes up and he, nobody sees a bandage on his hand, then what? Then you got egg on your face. Let's get to some of this chat here, because they are lighting it up. And what's going on, Savino? And we got Sunil in here. Donaldson couldn't even hold up 4-line subway train. Okay. Then we got John Doe. Welcome into the chat. Those Hicks is gone. It is a good day. Indeed, it is. You got Maz in here. Hicks gone is a huge win for Yankee fans. This now opens the door for Chaparro. Yeah, I know. I threw a couple of names out real quick. Believe me, I know you're gonna bring that name in there, TC. And let's see, Uncle Tats, where's your Mets fan cousin? Ask him how the Mets view Hicks. Well, I don't see the Mets going after Hicks. That ain't gonna happen. If that's a good question. Because who will be DFA or sent down when Trevino comes back? Let's talk about the ghost that came into the public view over the weekend with Royfett. He was. I like the way he played the game. He came in. He was ready to contribute. He didn't need to get his feet wet. He just seemed to kind of blend right into what the team was doing. What was your take on Royfett's weekend?
First of all, I love that he's rolling with the joke that he's not a real person because we've never seen him. It's like we've gotten this guy for 2 years now, and he finally makes an appearance. I love that he's rolling with that. But good swing. He mashed the double. I thought it was gone, but he's got a very nice swing. And again, I'm always going to bring this up. If you're batting in Yankee Stadium, I know he was in Cincinnati, but from the left side of the Bronx, if you got a tiny little bit of pop in your bat, you're going to become a power threat in Yankee Stadium. And I like that. I know when Trevino is healthy, assuming he is back in the 10-day period, he's going to probably get sent back down, Royfett. But ideally, they'd explore maybe moving Higgy if a team needs a backup catcher. Higgy can provide you some pop. Yeah, I don't know if you I don't know if they'll do that because Higgy does provide you a very good backup catcher, but I do want to see more of Royfett, though. I hope he does play tomorrow against Baltimore. I hope he gets a couple of games in because I want to see what he can do in Yankee Stadium. And if he does hit well, even if he plays 4 games until Trevino comes back, and in those 4 games he's hitting and he's playing well, his catching is fine. He was known as a defensive catcher anyway. I don't think that's a bad thing. And it's going to make the Yankees think about, hey, we got this 25-year-old left-handed bat that we can use as the backup catcher to Trevino. We got 2 very good defensive catchers, and one's probably going to be the better offensive player simply because he's batting from the left side in our stadium. So it'll give them something to think about. We're not going to carry 3 catchers, but we'll see. I know he's going to get sent down, though, but I hope he plays well enough that he makes them make a tough decision.
Yeah, it's I'm really it's only a handful. We only got a little taste of Royfett. He can kind of. We don't know what his next few games are going to be, but he's been on a tear in the minor leagues, which is why he got why they made the move. They would have had to, but at least it was a move that was not going to set the team back. Because like TC and everybody in the chat's been saying, and we've been saying, this team is starting to look like themselves again. And, not, you recognize the voice, but you don't recognize the face. Now everything is, the Yankees as a whole are starting to come into full vision of what they're going to be able to accomplish this year. They're back to the confidence level is at that point where we're not going to play down to you. You're going to have to you have to keep up with us now. And I think that's the winning formula for the Yankees that we saw in the first half of last year. It's like we're going to play our style of game. If you can catch up, good luck. Just sit back, relax, and watch us go on a tear. And I think that's kind of, because it was the John Doe. He was excited to see Greg Allen back. And one of the things I like about Greg Allen is his ability on the bases. I think that's going to be his big contribution is going to, on the bases. He's a great base stealer. And I think when you have the young kids that are trying to, we know Volpe doesn't really need any help. I don't even think he's been caught stealing yet. I think he's got 13 or 14 stolen bases. But I think it's going to be a good tool, somebody to have in the locker room that they can kind of bounce off of with, as a mentor, because he has the experience. So I do like the idea with Greg Allen, because he was a good Yankee when he was here. He wasn't an all-star where we were crying that he was gone, but we enjoyed him while he was contributing, and he did contribute when he was. One more comment here from FJ on Royvet. Royvet has to be considered for the starting job eventually. And I think that brings it back to what we were talking about. I think Higgins' days, like Jonathan said, also, I think his days are numbered. I just don't see where he's going to fit in long term right now, even short term.
Higgy's not starting over anybody. They're not going to move him yet. It's not trade season. And Chris in the chat, what's up to Chris? What's up to MH? Saw him pop in. LI just popped in as well. It's not like Rortvet. One game's not going to determine someone else's spot on the roster. So I don't know how long Trevino's out for. That's the big thing. If Trevino's out for the 10-day minimum, I doubt it because it's a hamstring. If he is out, but let's just say he is out for another 2 weeks. And if in those 2 weeks Rortvet is playing very, very well, Yankees are going to have to make a decision. But if he's just kind of every so often getting a hit here and there, like, well, you're getting that from Higgy anyway, and Higgy's your backup. Trevino's the starter. Until Austin Wells gets the call, because he's killing it. He's going to be in AAA sooner than later. But until that's your future at catcher. But I do like the idea of having one righty and one lefty as your platoon at the position. So they should explore moving Higgy because he does have like another year, I think, on his contract, maybe 2 with arbitration. But there could be some value there. Again, it was one game for Rortvet, but it was nice to see that, one, he exists, and 2, he came up and immediately made an impact because that was very nice to see. So obviously, we can't go off of one game and say that's the future, that's the guy, because the Yankees do view Austin Wells probably as the future, although he could eventually switch to another position. But he's been catching almost every single day in Somerset, and he's doing a fine job working with a lot of those young pitchers that could eventually be on the Major League rosters. I don't know what they're going to do there, but it's a good problem to have because one thing the Yankees were able to do back in the day when they had a lot of catching depth was move that for other pieces. So we'll see what happens there. I do want to see Rortvet get more playing time. I want there to be a tough roster decision where they have to go, do we keep this guy here? Do we trade somebody? What are we going to do? So, and that's a good problem for an organization to have when you can say we have depth and it's one game. We'll see how he does later on in the next week or so.
Yep. It's FJ pointed out, and I didn't catch the comment from them that Trevino could be out for a month. Let's see how that. I think that might actually. I really hope that's not the case because I think if you're able to get a tandem, like you were saying, if Whitfield goes on this tear and is able to kind of force their hand, where it's like, you know what, if we can get 2 starting catchers, then let's do it, and not have to worry about the backup with Higgy, who's really hasn't, aside from a couple of home runs, some timely hits, hasn't really. He's not kind of one of those bench guys where it's like, we want to see more of him. We're not pushing for that. And I kind of think that, as much as he always handled, he always caught Cole when Sanchez was on the team, but you're even seeing even that starting to dwindle. You don't see the two of them being paired up too often. So it might be one of those. Higgy's kind of fading out. I think the love is starting to kind of waver a little bit in the pecking order. But with Higgy, his contract, he's arbitration eligible in 2024 and then a free agent in 2025. So I don't know what they could do with that.
I mean, it gives you an extra year. He's a backup catcher.
Yeah,
that's what he is. Higgy was never going to be a starter. He was viewed as a solid player at one point, but he's never going to give you anything that's worth being a starter. He's a platoon catcher, which is fine. There's a place in baseball for a backup catcher. A lot of teams use a two-catcher system. The Yankees were doing that this year as well. They did it last year. It's just, if it is a month for Trevino, then that gives Rortvedt an opportunity to make him to stake his claim and be like, I need to stay here. Because let's say it's a month from now, that's basically going into July. Trade season is going to start heating up. Teams could be looking for a catcher. You never know. And the Yankees can say, well, we have this guy that can play really good defense, and he can provide you some pop here and there. There could be a market for that. You're not going to get anything significant for him, but it allows you to clear a spot. Rortvedt comes up. Austin Wells is going to be soon to follow. There's things that can happen there. So Trevino's not going to be traded. We're obviously not going to move Rortvedt unless Austin Wells is put into a big trade package for another player, potentially. There's, again, a lot can happen in a month. A lot can happen in a month. If it is a month. We don't know the exact time frame. But if that report is true from NYY News, and Pete's always on top of these things, so we'll see. Again, this is all based on one game from Rortvedt, so we can't go jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, I think, it was that first impression that has us kind of a little giddy. And the fact that we've been waiting to find out what he looks like. Does he walk with it? How does he present himself? How does he carry himself? So I think that off of that first game, because it's one game. He can go over for the next 5 for all we know. But it was a good first impression for a guy that we've been going, where is he? It's like, okay, this is what you guys have been hiding from us. What took you so long? But he did have a slow start this year in the minor leagues with his coming back from injury. And him and Wells have just been kind of slowly making their way into the limelight a little bit, and I'm all for it. I'd rather you be in the headlines for something you're doing right than something you're doing wrong. I think that goes without saying. But the other guy that has made his return has been Severino, and we got to see him finally yesterday. It was good to see him back on the mound. I wasn't expecting a lot out of him. I figured if he was able to get, 5 innings, 60 pitches, I think was kind of the expectation, because that's what he had done. That's where they capped him off in his last rehab. So what did you take away from Severino? Aside from the fact that at least it gives us a solid rotation piece, but his performance overall.
He touched 99. That's all I cared about. He touched 99. We haven't seen that from him in a little bit. So he had a rough first. I still don't know what the hell was going on with that run that scored. They called it foul and they allowed I don't know, whatever. But after that, he was shutting him down. He looked like he didn't miss a beat. And that's what you want to see. When a guy comes back from injury, we knew he had a pitch count number. I think it was 75 they took him out at, but if on a normal day where he didn't have a limit, he could have given you 6. And that's in today's game, that's all you want out of a starter is just give us 6 and we can turn to our bullpen, or, maybe 7, whatever. But he looked great, in my opinion. He looked great. Strikeouts were there. The stuff was moving well. It's going to take a little more time to get everything flowing, but that fastball hitting 99 his first start, and he was dotting the locations with it, that's great. Cincinnati's lineup isn't the worst out there. It's not like Oakland bad. So they got some guys that can hit. They're a scrappy bunch. So I like that he went out there. You can say, well, it's against the Reds. It's not a great test, but we'll see his next start. I think he's lined up to face San Diego.
Yeah.
That's going to be a very big test.
Yeah.
So the fact that fastball was almost at triple digits in his first start back, that's a great sign.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of was a little. Sometimes when you get in their their first start back, and it's against a sub 500 team, like if he was able to do that against Oakland, we'd have been like, he only went 5 innings. Maybe he's not as stretched out as we want him to be. But with a team like the Reds, they might be trying to find their identity, but they have pieces in their lineup that are a pain in the ass. They put together good at bat. They're obnoxious on the bases. They're a very aggressive team because there's no expectations. We've seen this before. Teams with low expectations seem to make wins the hardest because they're not going anywhere. So they're gonna try to just stay in their brand of baseball, and they're not gonna make it easy on you. So I think that we were able to see, and I think, like you said, the velocity I think is fine. I'm very happy with the velocity. That's kind of what we need. And his next start, he might, I do expect him to go a little deeper. As far as the pitch count, it's going to be San Diego, so you don't know how many innings you're going to get. But I do want to see more of the increase in the pitches rather than the innings. I think that's where we're going to be able to kind of get Severino back into his rhythm. I think eating innings, I think that'll come later on. Maybe another 2-3 starts, and then we'll start seeing the length out of them.
Yeah, and guys, I don't think LI is saying to trade Austin Wells. He's simply bringing up if Rortvedt does kill it at the major league level and the Yankees are forced, if they say, well, we got ourselves a good tandem already, would they consider trading Wells as part of a bigger trade package for a left fielder? I'm not saying, I don't know what position, who he's looking to get. We know LI's trades aren't always the greatest. I think he's just bringing up the possibility. I don't think he's saying trade Austin Wells, guy. Let's chill out. He's bringing up, that's actually not that bad of a question there. If Rortvedt does play very well, let's say it's a month that Trevino's out. I just read a report that it could be 10 days. We don't know yet. But if they say Trevino and Rortvedt as a platoon is fine, would you potentially move Austin Wells in a trade for a left fielder or something? We don't know if that player is going to be available, but we talk about it all the time. You got to move the prospects if you want to get good players. Well, Austin Wells would have had to have been part of a trade package for Brian Reynolds, and everyone wanted him. So, look, we can rip on LI a lot. We do it. I know we do it a lot. I do it a lot, but that's not nearly. I don't think that's what he's insinuating, saying trade him right now. I think he's just bringing up the possibility because, again, it's one game with Rortvedt. We're trying to play the what if game here. I think that's what he's doing. So let's chill out on LI right now.
No, it's very rare that there's something where he's kind of onto a good point. So let's not kill him for this one. This is actually one of his better ones. And I see you in the chat. What's going on, Jigga Man Porto? Good to see you hanging out with us this morning. But you also, it's when it comes down to with some of these prospects, we don't have room for them all, right? Because you are going to need some veterans in the mix. So when it comes down to with certain prospects, right, you already know that some trades just are going to have to hurt. You're going to have to throw in a guy that you really don't want to get rid of. But if the move makes sense at the time and it's for a player that can help us, sometimes you just gotta grin and bear it and hope for the best. So we made that move with and unfortunately with Cashman and his history, it usually doesn't work out. It's when they with JP Sears and Waldichuk for Montas, it was a trade that hurt. But we were like, all right, we wanted to get this guy. We missed out on Castillo. A lot of fans wanted to go after Montas, and he made the move. Unfortunately, it didn't work. But sometimes you have to make a trade that hurts to benefit the team. Hopefully, the next time he has to make a move like that, it works out. And I think it would have worked out with Reynolds. But sometimes that's just the way it is. That's the business side of it.
Yeah, and look, none of those guys we gave up for Montas have done well.
Killing it, yeah.
And if they were with us, if Waldichuk was with us right now in an ERA of almost 7, we'd be screaming to send him down. Or you should have traded him when you had the chance. JP Sears, you should have traded him when you had the chance. There's always another side to the story, another side to the coin, and you can't play the hindsight game. Last year, a lot of people wanted Montas, like you just said. I said, look, if you can't get Castillo, Montas is a really good consolation prize almost, or a second guy, or just stay with what you have. I like Ken Waldichuk a lot. I think he's still going to be a good pitcher at the major league level. But if we're going by what they've done this year, if Waldichuk and Sears and Medina, they've all been bad. And now Oakland's a bad team in general. But if Montas is just pitching for us right now, that's the thing. He hasn't pitched for us. So it's always going to be viewed as a terrible trade. But Cashman has, in his history, there hasn't really been, at least lately, that prospect that he's given up that has just kind of taken off. I think maybe the guy he gave up to Pittsburgh for Tyone, but Tyone was good for us for 2 years, so I can't really knock him for that trade. So, I mean, this year, is there that outfielder that's going to be available for trade that would cost you an Austin Wells? Probably not. It probably won't be the case because most of those players that you would look for in a trade are going to be rentals, like a Cody Bellinger maybe if the Cubs fall out of the race. Bellinger would be a guy I look at, but it's probably not going to cost you an Austin Wells.
Yeah.
That could be a case too, Sunil. But still, I'm just saying if their numbers were like that with us, we'd be a lot of the fan base would say, see, yeah, you should have traded them. This is why Cashman sucks. He should have traded them when he had the chance. So there's always going to be that other side to it. He traded them last year, got a really good major league pitcher. Whether you want to say he's only good in Oakland, okay, I get that. But we got ourselves what at the time was viewed as a number 2 starter behind Garrett Cole. It didn't work out. But had he not traded those guys and they were playing like that for us right now, you'd say you should have traded them for Montas when you had the chance. You should have traded them for so-and-so. You could have had Rodon last year. You could have had Castillo, blah, blah, blah. So there's always going to be that other side of things. I'm just saying, I don't want to defend Cashman, but there's always going to be that other side to it when you don't trade somebody and when you do trade somebody.
There's really nothing more to add to that. That's really it. But before we dip out, let's get into this upcoming series with the Orioles too. We're going to have Cole, Cortez, and Schmidt. If we can get 2 out of 3, we'd love a sweep from TC there. The Orioles, I don't think a sweep is going to be possible. I would take it in a heartbeat, but they are not the Orioles of the past. They're another team similar to what the Reds are doing. They've taken that. I heard actually a comparison with the Orioles to the way that they've rebuilt this team and the organization, similar to what the Astros have done, where just sucking for as many years as you can handle it, and just building up all these players with the high picks and drafts, and it does make sense when you see it the comparison like that. I think the Orioles, I've been saying it for a couple of years, are that team on the rise that are not going to be laughed at much longer, and they've shut up a lot of critics.
I mean, they're only like 2.5 games out anyway, so they got the second best record in the AL. So give them credit where it's due. Now we're right behind them. We've made a lot of ground. I do think we can, because we're at home. I think we can take 2 with Cole and Nestor specifically. But they're not going to make it easy. They got a good lineup. They got a really good lineup. So I think if we win this series, it's going to have to be good pitching from Cole and Cortez. I still don't trust Clark Schmidt. I know he was a lot better in his last start, but Cincinnati's lineup is loaded with right-handers, which helped him out. I know Baltimore has a bunch of lefties. They got some guys that are going to kill Clark Schmidt, so you wonder if maybe they go with an opener instead of starting Clark Schmidt immediately. But I don't know what to think about there. But with Cole and Cortez, I feel 2 out of 3 is certainly feasible, which would be great if we can continue to make ground on them and make ground on Tampa Bay. just keep winning. Keep winning series. That's how you get yourself out of a rut. And this has been a great month. And you get a much-needed day off and go back home. Hopefully we can take 2 out of 3. But it's going to be very important that we can keep those bats and that speed off the bases because the Orioles, they're annoying. And they're no longer a team that you're waiting to kind of crash and burn because it's just a hot start. They did it last year. They just missed the playoffs, and this year they're taking off. So I give them credit. They've proven me wrong. I think I had them finishing last, actually. I don't know.
I had them finishing in the 3rd place. I thought I thought it was going to be, when we did our opening day, I had us in 1st place, Toronto in 2nd, and the Orioles in 3rd. I thought Tampa and Boston would be in the 4 and 5. I did not want to sleep on the O's. I just, I thought they would do a lot better last year, and I doubled down this year that they were going to put a few more things together. I think that if they stay in contention like they are, I think they might be one of those teams that gets a little aggressive at the trade deadline. I can see that as a possibility as well. So they're no joke. They have to be taken seriously. We have Cole going tonight, not Schmidt.
It's tomorrow. We don't play tonight.
Tomorrow. That's what
it's Cole, Cortez, Schmidt is the –
yeah. So we really need Cole to Cole's got to set this. I like that he's the first pitcher in the series. Because I think when you have your ace to set the tone, especially in a division game, there are not that many in the schedule anymore. You have to set, you have to get out front. I think having Cole on the mound and who the Orioles have going, Bradich. So it should be a game that the Yankees should win. You get your ace on the mound. You've been on a tear. You've had, you have a day off. It's just time to get back on, back into the winning streak and just keep it rolling.
Yeah, and we got some good news with Canely starting a rehab assignment the other day, and he's been looking good. So we could be getting him back within the next maybe week or so. Things are looking up. The team has had a fantastic month, and there's only another week left of the month anyway. So if we can round this thing off strong, we said how important this month of May was, and so far, 14-6, and we went from being a 500 team, 10 games out. Now we're only 5.5 out. So they've made some serious ground, and they said we're not even 100% healthy. So Brian Cashman before the month, what did he say? Don't give up on us.
Yep.
He was right. It's very difficult to give up after a month of a season, but a lot of people were, and the reinforcements are starting to come back. I know I'm sounding like a Cashman homer this show. Trust me, I still don't like the guy at all, but he made some really good points during that press conference. It's like, look, it's the honest truth here is we are hurt, and it's tough for a team to win with that many injuries. We get Bader back. He's been outstanding. We get Judge back, and he just doesn't stop hitting. All of a sudden, the entire lineup is like, all right, we can kind of just get comfortable now. Torres had a good series. Rizzo, everyone's stepping up. Even IKF's been stepping up lately. They got rid of some dead weight. Things are looking good right now. Yeah, best in MLB in the month of May. So, big test this month. We all said it. Donald said it right before the month of May. They said, this is it. The season should be on the line.
This is the season, yeah.
And they've been crushing it so far. And the only losses have come to Cleveland and Tampa, right? If I'm not mistaken. No, one to Toronto.
Toronto.
Yeah.
Let me go back here. Which comment there, Sunil? I don't see it. But before we do sign off, just remember at 11 o'clock, go over to NYY News on YouTube. Pete will be there with his All Rise show. Be doing his call-ins. He'll have the number on his Twitter account and on his channel. Leave your voicemails. It's a cool thing he's done. And also he's got the tickets available for the NYY News event, Game 2, on September 23rd. It'll be at the Audi Suite. I've already got my ticket. I was sitting there refreshing. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you guys over there. So hop over to the NYY News and check out Pete and the All Right Show. But that's going to wrap this up for us. We will be back tomorrow as we are working to do something a little special for everybody. And as always, wear your pinstripes, your pride, and play hard.